Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 16 for key game picks. Current updates in terms of the playoffs, in terms of seedings in both the AFC and NFC conferences. Let's take a look at it. In the AFC, New England still currently holding on to the 1 seed, the Cincinnati Bengals the 2nd seed, the Denver Broncos the 3rd seed, the Houston Texans now have moved into the 4th seed, with the Chiefs at the 5th seed, and Pittsburgh now is currently the 6th seed at the moment. As far as the rest of who's in the hunt in the AFC, it's only the Colts and the Jets. Well, the Colts are only still in it despite their record because of the AFC South. The Jets are the only team now that's still alive. Basically, all other teams in the AFC pretty much have been eliminated, so it's pretty clear in the AFC who may be going into the playoffs and who may be not. In the NFC, Carolina Panthers still currently the number 1 seed, still undefeated. The Arizona Cardinals currently is the 2nd seed. Green Bay is the 3rd seed. Washington is the 4th seed. Seattle is the 5th seed. They've clinched a playoff berth, so now they will pretty much be in regardless if they're 5 or 6. And currently the 6th seed is the Minnesota Vikings, with teams like the Falcons, the Rams, the Buccaneers, and the Giants still in the hunt. All right. Very quick thoughts from week number 16. Obviously, it was the suspension of Odell Beckham Jr. and was kind of a total shocker to me. I mean, this guy's a very, very talented football player, and with the helmet to helmet hit he had last week, which really was a total surprise. But then again, he was a target all game long against the Panthers last week, and obviously Beckham lost his cool. It, which really was kind of a shocker to me. I mean, this guy is still a very young player who's playing at basically now a total superstar level. But you know, but you get things when you get things like this in terms of defense getting stuck to your head and all. I mean, look, he didn't really play all that well. He only had, I think, maybe 3-4 catches in the game, even though he did score the game-tying touchdown for the Giants, even though they weren't able to hang on to beat the Carolina Panthers. So yeah, in terms of Week 16, this is going to hurt for the Giants. He is appealing a suspension. I have no word on that in terms of the time of this video, so you have to keep looking at NFL.com for more news on that. So yeah, that's going to really hurt the Giants if he's not playing in this game, especially a very big game coming up. What other thoughts from Week 16? Look, the AFC pretty much is very clear on who will be in and who might be out. I mean, it all comes down basically to that last wild card spot between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Jets. And it's really, really going to come down to Week 17, because whatever happens this week between Pittsburgh's game and the New York Jets game, it'll be very, very huge to see who gets that last playoff spot. NFC is also starting to become pretty clear as well. It's obviously the Carolina Panthers are going to clinch home field advantage. That's pretty obvious. But in terms of even if they go 16-0 or let alone 15-1, no one's going to catch them for home field advantage. But obviously a bye week is going to be huge right now in terms of teams like the Cardinals, the Packers, or let alone the Minnesota Vikings, in terms of whether the Vikings or the Packers end up winning the NFC North. But for Arizona, it's more big for them if they want at least the first round bye. NFC East pretty much is going to come down. It's definitely going to come down to this weekend between the Redskins and the Eagles. I think those two teams, whoever wins that game, is going to end up winning the division. And the current playoff scenario for that is that if the Redskins win their game, they clinch the NFC East, regardless of what happens between Philadelphia and the Giants in Week 17. Quick thoughts also on another thing too. Obviously, the Rams and Chargers might have been playing their last games in their respective cities. Nobody knows what is going to happen at this point. Now, that is a totally another subject for another day. But it's not easy for a team that's going to be relocated to another city. But I think it was probably more heartbreaking. Was probably more on the San Diego Chargers side, because that team's been in San Diego since 1961, and I know they have no Super Bowl championships and all that. I'm hearing all this flack from all this flack, whatever. Look, personally, You can say what you want about the San Diego Chargers, okay? I could care less, okay? But they're still a very viable franchise in the NFL. And wherever they go, hopefully they find some new success wherever city they go to. Same thing with the St. Louis Rams. There are as the NFL as like the Oakland Raiders. They're possibly another team they're also could be playing their final game this week in Oakland. Nobody knows what the status of that team is going to be. So yeah, it's not easy when a team relocates and determining where they're going to go. And nobody knows yet what's going to happen. That's a totally another subject for another day. But anyways, let's talk about Week 16. All right. Key game number 1 for Week 16 is, of course, one of the big ones here, the Redskins at the Eagles. Eagles are actually a 3-point favorite in this one. But the way the Eagles played last week against the Arizona Cardinals, can they beat the Redskins here? The Redskins are playing on a roll here. They've won their last 2 games, and really the Redskins have found their quarterback in terms of Kirk Cousins. And the way he's leading that offense right now for the Redskins, it is really, really becoming something special in Washington right now. The Eagles played so terribly last week against the Cardinals and all that. How do you bounce back from this? I mean, they're going to need a lot of motivation in this. Despite the Eagles being a 3-point favorite, Washington's offense is much better than theirs. The Eagles, you don't know what you're getting out of this team. It's been that way all season. And obviously there is a lot riding on Chip Kelly right now, whether or not he's going to be back next season, because he is on the hot seat. No question. So, in terms of their offenses right now, look, the Eagles need to really rely, in order to stop Washington, their defense needs to come up big, but especially their offense needs to really, really control the ball. Otherwise, Washington's going to win this game without any problems here. So who wins this game between these two teams? I'm going to go with the Washington Redskins here. I think they're going to wrap up the NFC East here. The Eagles, I mean, I know they have, this is a Saturday night game. And for them, this is very important in order to keep pace with them. But really, the way the Eagles played last week, I don't know how you bounce back this week here. The Eagles got a lot riding on this game as much as Washington does. But I think Washington barely has any pressure at the moment right now, especially the games that they played. So yeah, I think Washington will beat Philadelphia here. I expect this game to be very close, no question about it. But I think the Redskins are going to pull away in this game, probably in the fourth quarter, unless the Eagles can keep up with them. But no question, this will definitely be a very close game here. But I'm going to go with the Redskins here. I think they'll wrap up the NFC East here. But in terms of that, and if not, then obviously everything is going to rely on Week 17 to see who ends up winning that dismal division. So I'm going to pick the Redskins over the Eagles. Key game number 2, the Packers at the Cardinals. A big one here. Cardinals 4.5-point favorite. Green Bay right now looking for another win, and they've already clinched the playoff berth, but they haven't clinched the NFC North division just yet. And it's really, really a toss-up in this game here. And obviously for Arizona, this is a big game right here because this pretty much will guarantee them the first round bye if they beat the Packers here. Packers looking to maintain their lead in the NFC North because Minnesota is only still 1 game behind them, and they don't want to go into a situation where going into next week it's going to rely on Week 17 to determine the NFC North division right there. Green Bay's offense is going to need to really step up big in order to beat a pretty good Arizona defense here. Arizona right now, their offense could not be playing at a much higher level, but a lot of question now is going to be on Carson Palmer's thumb because he did hurt his thumb in that game last week against the Eagles, and how effective in the pain how it's going to be. But I don't know exactly yet what's going to happen with that, but it could be a small factor. It could be a small factor, but I don't think it'll be much trouble for him in terms unless if anything goes wrong in it. Now they lost Mateo's gone for the season. That's kind of going to hurt them a little bit here. But I think a bigger blow would have been if Carson Palmer really would have hurt his hand, because they know that with Stanton playing last year, I mean, they didn't have much chance in the playoffs last season, but you want to have Carson Palmer in there taking the snaps for that offense here. It's a big toss-up here. Tough one to pick here, but I'm still going to go with the Arizona Cardinals here. I think they will wrap up a first-round bye, and I think for Green Bay, it's going to come down to week 17 against Minnesota. I will talk about Minnesota. That's also going to be another key game I'll talk about in just a moment here. But Arizona here, I like the Cardinals in this one in a very, very tight game, but I think the Cardinals pull it out just barely. No question this game will be tight all the way. Cardinals over the Packers. And speaking of the Minnesota Vikings, in key game number 3, Giants at the Vikings. Vikings 6-point favorite in this one, but the big factor will be how healthy is Adrian Peterson? Will he be playing in this game? He got hurt in the game last Sunday. So that's going to become a factor. If he's not in there, that running game is going to take a huge hit. And also the way Teddy Bridgewater's been playing, especially trying to avoid concussion, it could be another factor here. Now the Giants right now, this is it right here for the season. They're not eliminated yet. But if it comes down to it, if the Giants do lose this game, they're eliminated officially, because it would put in the factor between Washington and Philadelphia. Even though Philadelphia, they're still alive here. But going to talk about this game between the Giants and the Vikings here. Now, without Beckham in this game, assuming that his appeal on his suspension is denied, that's really going to hurt That's going to really hurt the wide receivers in any offensive weaponry Eli Manning has. So there's a lot of factors in this game right now, which does make this a toss-up here. Now, I know 6 points may seem a lot, and is saying why saying this game is a toss-up. You have to look in mind into those factors here. If Beckham's not there for the Giants, and I know that makes Minnesota a much more heavier favorite, but without Adrian Peterson in there for Minnesota, he's a game-time decision, and he's questionable at the moment right there. That odds number could be a lot lower by the end of the week. So it's really tough to say who's going to come out of this game the victor here, but I think I will go with the Minnesota Vikings here. I think they will keep pace with the Packers and force that Week 17 showdown for the division title. But because the Giants right now, they're basically just in disarray now, and a lot is going to ride on now whether coach Tom Coughlin will be back next season, because if they lose this game, who knows if Coughlin will be back after this, because a Giants loss here could pretty much eliminate them from the NFC East contention. I like Minnesota here, even if without Adrian Peterson, their offense is a little bit better than their offense is really going to be having a little more of an advantage, because if Eli does not have Beckham in there for their offense, I think Minnesota's defense could provide stops. But no question, I see this game close. This will be a tight game all the way, but I'm going to go with Minnesota here. I think Minnesota will make Green Bay, as I stated before in my earlier pick, to have Arizona will beat them, and I think it's going to force that Week 17 showdown. We'll see. Vikings over the Giants. And key game number 4, another big one here, the Bengals at the Broncos. Broncos are a 3.5-point favorite, and this will decide the first round bye between these two teams. Now, both these teams now, obviously, with no Andy Dalton for the Bengals, it's obviously going to be a factor. A.J. McCarron didn't really play all that well last week against the 49ers, even though the Bengals still ended up winning. But for Denver, now, Brock Osweiler, he didn't play all that well either. He didn't play all that well either against Pittsburgh, even though despite Denver having a lead and not being able to hold it. Now I start to wonder, is their defense becoming vulnerable now? But obviously a lot is relying on the offense too as well. Can Brock Osweiler not turn the ball over? Tough to say what comes out of this game here, because these are backup quarterbacks now taking the snaps here. And I know a lot of people are wondering, should the Broncos put Peyton Manning in there? I have no word on that, whether if Coach Kubiak is going to make that decision yet. But from now, they might stick with Osweiler. No, look, Denver is barely a slight favorite in this one. But who's to say if A.J. McCarron can lead that Cincinnati offense? Remember, he has weapons to work with. He's got A.J. Green. He's got Bernard. You're talking about still a pretty good offense that you have here for Cincinnati, and it's going to be tested against a pretty good Denver defense here. No question this game is a huge toss-up here. Tough to say who wins this one here. This game could go either way. But for this, I'm going to say the Denver Broncos barely pull it out. I think the Broncos will get the first round bye here, which will force Cincinnati to play a wild card game here because the Bengals pretty much can still which could put the Bengals in still in another difficult position now coming down week 17. Remember, there's still a chance they could still end up losing the AFC North to the Steelers. So it's a lot riding on this game right now because if Pittsburgh wins their game and Cincinnati loses, now it's going to come down to week 17 to see who ends up winning the AFC North. But really right now, when I talk about this game between Cincinnati and Denver here, I like Denver in this one here. Denver, a slight favorite. I think they'll win by a field goal. It'll be a very, very tight game all the way, but I'm going to pick the Broncos here. Broncos over the Bengals. Alright, that wraps up my picks now for Week 17. Now, next week is Week 17. Stay tuned for a special edition video in that where it's only going to be talking about the playoff picture and maybe what key games are going to come out of it. So, it'll probably be just maybe 2 key games or maybe 3. I'm not sure. All of it's going to be, so prepare for a long video next week in terms of what, because my model is in Week 17. Anything can happen in Week 17. But right now for Week 16 here, we'll wait and see what happens in these games here in terms of the current playoff picture in the AFC and the NFC conferences. Now, thesportblog.blogspot.com for all of my Week 16 picks. It's going to be a short post on that one because I'm getting ready for the holidays. I'm going to be spending it with my family here. So, yeah, expect a very short post on that. I'm not going to say a lot in that writing post. But other than that, have a Merry Christmas, everybody, and I'll see you next week when I talk about Week 17. Enjoy your holiday weekend and also enjoy your football weekend.